Hello and happy Thursday. I'm Matt, and welcome to This Week at the Movies. Going to be talking about a quartet of films that are due to open either in wide or limited release this weekend, Friday, actually starting tonight, Thursday night. And so, going to dive right in. A couple of these I saw as part of the Cinemark Secret Screening series. You know, if you are a movie fan and you're not real particular about what you're going to see, it is fun when those come up 1 or 2 times a month. That's $5 to go. You don't know what movie you're going to get until it launches. Sometimes you find ones you really like, which was the case here. Sometimes you find ones that are not your favorite, which was also the case here. But first, I'm going to jump off with probably the biggest release of the week, and that is the film Honey, Don't. You know, I am a huge fan of the Coen brothers, Joel and Ethan Coen. They've made some of my favorite films of all time, but it has been a long time since they collaborated on a film. Their last film together was the Netflix release, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, in 2018. Their last big theatrical release was Hail Caesar in 2016. That is a long time away. In the meantime, Ethan Coen has been working on a planned, they call it a lesbian B-movie trilogy that started last year with the release of Drive Away Dolls. If you remember, Eric and I covered that one. Not my favorite film. I kind of gave it a mild thumbs down. I liked the cast. I thought there was potential. It didn't quite work for me, but Ethan Coen back with Trisha Cook again for Honey Don't, which is the middle leg of this planned trilogy. This one also starring Margaret Qualley, who was the lead in their last one. This one also has Aubrey Plaza, Chris Evans, Charlie Day, among others. Really enjoyed that. Follows Honey O'Donohue, who is a hard-nosed private investigator in Bakersfield, California. The setting, a lot of the things work here. We open with a mysterious death. She gets called to the scene. What's going on? She starts to poke around. You know, it's a dark comedy. We've seen, you know, when Joel and Ethan were working together, they did a lot of these kind of dark crime capers that mixed kind of a little bit of black comedy with crime sequences, over the top characters, settings, and scenarios. I feel a lot of that here. Much like Drive Away Dolls, this one has quite a bit of sexual content as well, so you need to be braced for that if you're not ready for it. Has a very good cast of kind of a different kind of role for Chris Evans. Definitely miles away from when he was our Captain America. I really like Qualley in the lead role here. I thought she's a lot of fun. I actually really was amused by Charlie Day, who plays a detective that has some back and forth here. Aubrey Plaza pops up from time to time. I have enjoyed her in the past. I was curious to see them play off of each other. Not the greatest part, probably, for Aubrey Plaza. This one lost me a little bit in the third act reveal. Not all the pieces seemingly all come together, but, you know, that happens sometimes in these dark comedy crime films. It really picks up and follows a little bit of the same kind of tone and strands of the first collaboration, another all-star studded cast. I'm going to give this one a thumbs neutral. I like this one a little bit more than Drive Away Dolls. It didn't totally work. There are things about it I didn't really care for. And as I mentioned, the ending really kind of didn't work for me. It comes on too quickly. It ends in a weird place. I don't think it brought everything together. But I really liked the tone, the mood. This has one of the more ingenious opening credit sequences where you're really capturing the setup in Bakersfield and some of the way the credits roll on there. I really enjoyed. It just doesn't all come together. Margaret Qualley, very good. There's going to be another movie later in the show where I didn't love the movie, but has a really good singular performance. I think she's almost worth the price of admission. But this is definitely for a very specific kind of niche audience. It definitely earns its R rating, not for kids, not for those who don't like quirk, who want something a little more defined and who aren't big fans of this kind of setup. If you were not a fan of Drive Away Dolls, I find it hard to believe you're really going to get into this one either. But I think it works. I'm curious to see where they go with a third one. Hopefully they get to make it. I like to see the completion of this. And, you know, it's fair to wonder if we're ever going to see Joel and Ethan working together again. If we can't get that, I at least like to see one of them crafting one of these kind of original stories. Next up on the docket for me was one of my Cinemark secret screenings I mentioned, and that is the movie Relay. This one was a secret screening on August 12th. It is due to come out in theaters this Friday, a little more of a limited release. This one, an interesting film, comes from director David Mackenzie, who gave us Hell or High Water. This is another kind of thriller, but a different type of thriller. I really like the script here from Justin Piasecki. It is a story I hadn't seen before. We take place in New York, where Ash, played by Riz Ahmed, is something of a fixer. People come to him with these problems, people who have information implicating big corporations who are facing some difficulty and pressure from those corporations and just want to make things go away and end up being safe. So he kind of brokers a deal. He doesn't meet with his clients. He doesn't even hardly talk to them. In fact, the first probably half hour, 40 minutes of this film, Riz Ahmed doesn't have any spoken dialogue. It is a very fascinating and engaging performance relying on non-verbal cues. But he gets hooked up with a new client, Sarah, played by Lily James, who has some incriminating documents on a company that she used to work for. She had planned to be a whistleblower, but now with all the threats she's getting and the pressure, she just wants to be able to give the documents back and make sure that she's safe. So he works to broker a deal, but this company has hired their own set of fixers led by Dawson, played by Sam Worthington. He has a whole team, among them Willa Fitzgerald. You will recognize her, and a few other faces that pop up. So can this deal get brokered? Can they both stay safe? It was a fascinating setup for a film. The film drives its title Relay because Ash uses the tri-state relay system, which is for those who are deaf, who have an interpreter who can send written messages back and forth and communicate with speaking clients. He uses it as a way to shield his identity. I thought that was very clever. There were some interesting things here. Riz Ahmed gives a performance that I really enjoyed. I thought about it for a couple of days after I saw the movie. This was a movie I didn't expect. I thought it was really engaging. It has some third act twists that I didn't see coming, that I thought actually ended up working and adding a little bit of emotional weight and heft to the film. I thought it was a really fun watch, something I hadn't heard a lot about prior to coming out. I really enjoyed Mackenzie's films in the past, particularly Hell or High Water, which was a really good one with Chris Pine and Ben Foster and Jeff Bridges. I think this is a very engaging thriller too. I'm giving this one a thumbs up. I had a lot of fun with this. This has actually made it up into my top 10 for the year so far. You know, it's been an interesting year for films. We've had a couple of great ones. We've had a lot of good ones kind of sorting through. This one was surprising to me in a lot of ways, but one that I really enjoyed. I think it is worth checking out. Next up, the other secret screening I had this month, Cinemark. This one was on Monday night, and it is for the movie Eden from director Ron Howard. He worked on the screen story with writer Noah Pink, who crafted the script. This one is actually based on a true story of a group of people who end up kind of deciding to flee society and settle on a remote island called Floriana in the Galapagos. We first find out that with the rise of the Nazi Party and Hitler in Germany in a post-World War Germany that was tough to live in, Dr. Frederick Ritter, played by Jude Law here, and his wife, Dory, played by Vanessa Kirby, had escaped to this island hoping to get away from it all, but also to come up with kind of a new philosophy for society, a new way of life. Now, a few years later, they had fled Germany in 1929 to move here a few years later. The film picks up in 1932, and that is when Heinz, played by Daniel Bruhl, and his wife Margaret, played by Sydney Sweeney, arrive with their son Harry. They are also looking to start over. They're frustrated by the costs of everything. They're frustrated by the direction of where their country is going. They have read all these uh, pieces about Dr. Ritter because he has been writing letters back to the media back home, talking about his life and his philosophy. It has made him something of a star, but they are begrudging stars. He and Dory are not happy to have other people on the island. They don't make a warm welcome. And despite some very harrowing conditions, Hines and Margaret are able to make a go and actually are more able to make it go more successfully on this island than even Ritter, which rankles him further. He gets further put into his feelings when the Baroness, played by Ana de Armas, arrives. She has rallied a cadre of male followers to her grand idea that she wants to build a big hotel, an exclusive private getaway for people. But when she arrives, the setup and the island and the hostile conditions on the island are not what she's expecting. She does not get a warm welcome from Ritter either. He's even further displeased to have them. She doesn't really get a warm welcome from Hines and Margaret either. She kind of treads on some of their space, on some of the provisions that they built for themselves. She's very much a user. And obviously, the tension between these three groups builds to a fever pitch. It starts out at the beginning by telling you that the story is being told from the recollections of the survivors, which is always a clue that things aren't going to turn out great. If there are survivors, there are people who were not survivors. And this one takes kind of a dark and a grim turn. Ron Howard is an interesting director. I've called him a little bit of a chameleon as a director. He uses a lot of different styles. He's done a lot of different kinds of films. We've seen him do broad comedies. We've seen him do fun dramas. We've seen him do action films. We've seen him do epic films. He directed one of my favorite documentaries of all time in Rebuilding Paradise. This is something a lot darker, probably a lot grimier than what you're used to seeing. A fascinating film that has a really good cast, but it is not a fun story to watch. I don't think all of the characters are incredibly well drawn, or that it really draws you into the story. I will say my MVP here, I mentioned this earlier, another film, I'm giving it a thumbs neutral. I didn't think it was great. It's not bad, but it is fascinating. It is a little too long. It runs about 130 minutes. It feels its length because of how difficult the story is, how difficult the conditions are for the people and the characters going through this. But my MVP here is actually Sydney Sweeney, who had a couple of jaw-dropping scenes. I know she's not always regarded as a great actress, but I thought she was very captivating here and was the best performer in a film that has a pretty loaded cast. You know, Brule, Jude Law, Vanessa Kirby have all given some very good performances in the past, but I thought she was the best in this film. And it sort of makes sense when you get to the end and realize that predominantly this is built on the perspective of Margaret, who ended up living on this island of Floriana her whole life. She passed away in 2000 when she was in her 90s. So she was there for decades helping to establish things. Her descendants still live on this island. It's really her story. You kind of get some indications of that at the beginning, a little bit of voiceover, her letters that she's writing to her mother back home, but it really comes to fruition at the end. And then it made sense how much seems to come from her perspective and how great of a character she is among this group. It is a fascinating story. It's definitely an interesting original story I knew nothing about. And so from that standpoint, I was kind of interested to get drawn into it. It is, as I said, a little bit long, and it is a little bit brutal. Probably not one of those movies that you're going to end up as a feel-good film, throwing it on DVD in 6 months when you're on a Friday night and just want to kick back and relax. It's a different kind of movie. But you can tell Howard was very invested in wanting to tell this story and fascinated by this story. And there are some beautiful shots and sequences in here as well. It just doesn't all come together for me. It wasn't the greatest time I've had at theaters. Lastly, we have a film that's in limited release this week and also coming to VOD on September 9th, and that is the film We Strangers. This one was at South by Southwest in 2024. It comes from Anu Valia, who is the writer and director. She kind of based it on some of her past history growing up in Gary, Indiana, where this film is set. We follow a woman who cleans houses, Ray, played by Kirby Howell-Baptiste. She's cleaning houses for some wealthier people in town. She's starting out with just one family, working for Dr. Patel, played by Harry Dillon. But his nosy neighbor, Jean, played by Maria Dizia, comes over, kind of asks some questions, and pretty soon Dr. Patel asks Ray if she'd be willing to clean Jean's house too. Ray has some interesting interactions with Jean and Ed, and seemingly on a lark trying to maybe boost her profile and position. She talks about a special gift that she has. This piques Jean's interest, later piques the interest of Patel's wife, Tracy, played by Sarah Goldberg. And that leads them down an interesting road. This is a much shorter film. It's just about an hour and 20 minutes. It's actually the shortest of the 4 films that come up today. It's also getting the most limited release. It may not be one that is incredibly easy to find, but as I mentioned, it'll come out on VOD. Another film, I really liked Kirby Howell-Baptiste. I think she does a nice job in this role, but the story doesn't all come together for me. I spent a bit of time trying to think about what I'm meant to take away from this, and it just doesn't all come together and coalesce in the way that I would have liked. I'm giving this one a mild thumbs down. There are elements of it that are interesting. It was a brisk watch. It didn't wear out its welcome. It just doesn't all click for me. So to recap, the kind of 4 movies that are out there: Honey Don't, the latest from Ethan Coen and Trisha Cook. Great performance from Margaret Qualley. Thumbs neutral from me. I like it a little bit better than Drive Away Dolls. It's kind of in the same vein. It's the second leg of a planned trilogy of those types of films. Then the film Relay from David Mackenzie. I really enjoyed this one. Great performance from Riz Ahmed. I thought there were some great twists and turns. This one, a full thumbs up for me. This one also in a little bit more of a limited release as it's coming out this week. Might be harder to find. I think it is worth seeking out. Third film, Ron Howard's Eden. Comes out. It's in a full wide release. This one, a great performance from Sydney Sweeney. A film that was a little uneven for me, a little bit of a slog at times because of how dark this story is, based on a true story. I gave that one a thumbs neutral. Not bad, but not great. And then We Strangers, a good performance from Kirby Howell-Baptiste. Doesn't all come together for me at the end. That one in limited release, coming to VOD soon. That was a mild thumbs down for me. Well, that'll do it for me this week. Next week, we will be back with a big Labor Day weekend show. I believe Eric is going to join me. We're going to talk about some of the highlights of summer. Labor Day, kind of the unofficial end of summer. Also, Darren Aronofsky's Caught Stealing comes out next week. And The Roses, the remake of War of the Roses with Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman, are out, so I'll have some thoughts about that. But something to look forward to. Until then, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Plenty of options to seek out here at the theater. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you at the movies.